This week we're going to be taking a look at the United States Congress. And a couple things we need to keep in mind when we think about the United States Congress is, first of all, that the United States Congress is made up of both the U.S. House of Representatives and the United States Senate. Many times we will call our representative in the United States House of Representatives our congressman. And while that is not incorrect, we have to be sure that when we're talking about members of Congress, you understand, are we talking about our member of the United States House of Representatives? Are we talking about a U.S. Senator? Or are we talking about them together? So I will do my best to distinguish between members of the United States House of Representatives and members of the United States Senate when we're talking. The next thing that we have to keep in mind about Congress is that Congress has changed over the years. As we'll take a look at here, the House of Representatives and the Senate are not the same size as they used to be. They don't have the same rules. They're not necessarily elected the same way. So we're going to take a look at how states are represented in the United States House of Representatives and in the United States Senate. And we're going to take a look at how those two institutions are organized. Now I want to start off this week's discussion with a discussion about how the states are represented in Congress. And we'll need to realize that the makeup of Congress has changed since Congress was created by the United States Constitution in 1789. In 1789, there were 26 members of the United States Senate and 65 members of the House of Representatives. It should be relatively easy for us to figure out why there were 26 members of the United States Senate in 1789, because there were 13 states and there were 2 individuals from each state in the United States Senate. But when we look at the size of the House of Representatives in 1789, it's a little bit harder to figure out without knowing exactly what the Constitution said about representation in the House of Representatives. The U.S. Constitution originally says that there will be 1 member of the United States House of Representatives from each state for every 30,000 in population from that state. So we could do some rough math here and multiply 65 times 30,000, and it would give us a rough estimate of the size or of the population of the United States in 1789. Now, we need to realize that by 2012, some things have changed. The United States Senate now has 100 members, and that is simply because we have 50 states, 2 members from each state. The House of Representatives has also changed, though. There are now 435 members in the United States House of Representatives. So there are some pretty significant changes in the size of Congress. Now, we're going to take a little bit closer look at how members of the United States Senate are elected. Remember, originally, the United States Senate was made up of individuals that were selected by state legislatures. Election of U.S. senators prior to 1913 was done by the citizens of the state electing their state legislature, and the state legislature would then select the 2 people to represent their state in the United States Senate. Senators were indirectly elected. Prior to 1913, only members of the United States House of Representatives were directly elected. With the passage of the 17th Amendment in 1913, we begin to directly elect members of the United States Senate as well as members of the United States House of Representatives. So how members of Congress are selected has also changed since 1789. As we've said, today each state is represented in the United States Senate by 2 senators. But when we look at the House of Representatives, The number of people that represent a state in the United States House of Representatives varies from state to state based on that state's population. When we look at the House of Representatives today, the state that has the most members of the United States House of Representatives is California, who has a total of 53 members. And then the states with the fewest members in the House of Representatives have at least one. And there are 7 states who have only 1 member of the United States House of Representatives. When we look at the United States Constitution as it was originally written, we notice that it says that there will be 1 member in the House of Representatives from a state for each 30,000 people that live in that state. Today, we don't use that formula. Today, that formula has been replaced, and what we say in the House of Representatives today is that there will never be more than 435 members of the House of Representatives. Now, between 1789 and 1929, each time a state's population grew by 30,000, they were entitled to another member of the House of Representatives. Well, starting in 1929, we cap the House of Representatives at 435, which means there'll never be more than 435 members of the House of Representatives. Now, why is that? Let's take a look at this. Originally, the United States Constitution said the House of Representatives would increase by 1 member each time there was a 30,000 increase in population. This increase in members would take place every 10 years. So the Constitution says every 10 years we're going to count the population of the United States. We count the population in each state. So if they count the population of my state this year and my state has grown in population over the 10 years by 60,000 people, we would get 2 new members of the United States House of Representatives. And every state that had an increase of at least 30,000 would gain at least 1 member of the House of Representatives. This is done in conjunction with what we call the U.S. Census. The United States Constitution says every 10 years we will take a census of the population of the United States. We'll count how many people we have. And as the population began to grow quicker and quicker, in 1929 we figured out that if we continue to add 1 member of the House of Representatives for every 30,000, very quickly the House of Representatives would become much too large. So in 1929, as part of the Reapportionment Act, we said the House of Representatives will never be any larger than 435. Let me show you just a little bit of math here. Don't do much math in this class, but take a look at this. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, the population as of yesterday, the 22nd of March 2012, was 313,229,527. Now, based on that population, if we divided that by 30,000, you come up with a figure of 10,440. So if we use the formula from the original Constitution, the House of Representatives today would be made up of 10,440 members. Could you imagine trying to get anything accomplished in a body that was made up of over 10,000 people? It would not happen. So today what we do is we take the population every 10 years and we divide that population by 435, and that determines how many people each member of the House of Representatives will represent. In other words, instead of saying that each state will have 1 member of the House of Representatives for every 30,000, as the Constitution originally said, now what we do is we divide the population by 435, come up with the figure of roughly 720,000, and today, when we reapportion seats in the House of Representatives, we give each state 1 seat in the House of Representatives for each 720,000 people, approximately. And that number changes every 10 years. As the population grows, the number of people that each member of the House of Representatives represents goes up. While it is true that the size of the House of Representatives is capped at 435, we need to realize that every 10 years when we count the population of the United States, the number of representatives from each state can change. While the number of representatives in the House of Representatives stays constant at 435, if a state grows or decreases in size, an individual state can lose seats or gain seats every 10 years. So the process of redistributing the 435 seats in the House of Representatives every 10 years is called reapportionment. And that reapportionment, as we said, is done in response to the U.S. Census every 10 years. And after the census is done and reapportionment has taken place, there are times when states will gain seats and there will be times when states lose seats. Let's take a look at this, a couple examples. The reapportionment process. California, in 1850, only had 2 seats in the United States House of Representatives. But by 2012, we will notice that California is the largest state in the Union in representation, and they have 53 seats in the House of Representatives. When we look at the reapportionment process in relation to New York, in 1940, New York was one of the largest states in the Union with 45 seats in the United States House of Representatives. People have been moving out of New York to different places in the country. Other parts of the country have been growing faster than New York. So in 2012, New York only had 29 seats in the United States House of Representatives. And let's take a look at this a little bit closer to home. In 2000, Missouri had 9 seats in the United States House of Representatives. But when we counted the population in 2012, it turns out that Missouri's population grew slower than many other states in the United States. So we lost a seat in the United States House of Representatives. Right now, we only have 8 seats. So reapportionment, again, is the process by which the federal government, and remember this, the federal government conducts the census, and it's the federal government that reapportions the seats. After the census is done, each state is given 2 pieces of information based on the reapportionment process. First piece of information they get is how many members of the United States House of Representatives their state will have. The second piece of information that they're given is how many people will be in each district. In other words, how many citizens have to live in each of the U.S. House of Representative districts that you create. And it's important that each district be approximately the same size because we want to make sure that we get as close to the one person, one vote concept in this country as possible. Because if you have a district that has 600,000 people in it and they have one representative for those 600,000 people, those citizens are going to have a different amount of power than if you have a district that has 1.2 million people in it and only have one representative. So after the reapportionment, each state is told how many members of the United States House of Representatives they'll have. In other words, how many districts they have to split their state up into, and then they're told how large each one of those districts has to be. After the federal government has conducted the reapportionment process and has given this information to the states, then the states get involved in the process of redistricting. And basically what they're doing is they're redrawing the district lines within their state.